Chapter 15. Stand up straight, Maggie commanded, and the 5 backwoods girls stood at immediate attention. Now take your places. And one after another, the barefoot girls marched across the old schoolroom at the end of the upstairs hall and sat among the rows of connected desks with the empty inkwells and fancy iron legs. Maggie stood at the front of the room facing them. You, Kate, she ordered, pointing to the first seat, go to the globe and locate Africa. Ew, answered Kate. What's a globe? Don't you even know what a globe is? It's this thing, see? This is the globe. It's like the world. Maggie laid her hand on the smooth brown and yellow sphere, all decorated with sailing ships and mermaids holding shells to their ears like telephone receivers. Now find Africa on it. Africa? What's Africa? Africa's a continent, dummy. Don't you even know that? She gave the globe a spin that blended the continents, the sea, and all its mermaids and ships into a smear of tan. Here, she said, stopping with her finger. Here's Africa. No, here I mean. Ooh, wonderful! Africa! Sit down, Elizabeth, Maggie ordered next. Your turn. Stand up when you speak. And she waited long enough. I have to do that again. Sit down. Elizabeth, Maggie ordered next. Your turn. Stand up when you speak. And she waited long enough for the next backwoods girl to get to her feet. Go to the blackboard. Ooh, what's a blackboard? Maggie repeated in disdain. This is a blackboard, stupid. Don't you know that? You write on it with chalk, except there was no chalk. And Maggie wet her finger to write her name. See, she said, watching the letters fade and leave a pale imprint. Now what's 8 times 7? Write the answer on the blackboard. 8 times 7? What's that? It's multiplication, that's what. 8 times 7 is 56. Say that. 56. No, say 8 times 7 is 56. Never mind. You're too dumb. Sit down. Now we'll have reading. And she took 5 books from the shelf under the window. Here, she said, placing them all with frayed bindings and faded lettering on 5 empty desks. Anne, you may begin. She picked up one of the books. Stand up and read aloud. I'll help you with the words you don't know. But when she opened the book, she discovered there were no printed words. Instead, the pages were handwritten in ink the color of mosquitoes. Not brown, not gray, no color, really, and in a hand shaped like mosquitoes, too. Tiny winged letters marching across the page on slender legs. February 17th, she read. More snow today. It was somebody's diary. Margaretta hid too long in the garden, it went on, and when she came in at last, her nose was blue-gray and her little wrists were flaming. We thawed her out by the stove, although that is not wise. Rub snow on her is what we should have done, but that is cruel, it seems to me, and so she sat by the fire, looking like a roasted goose, with steam rising from her feet and her face growing redder and redder. Maggie turned the book over in her hand and squinted at the rubbed-out letters on its cover. Daily something, it said, and then there were some numbers. 1 something, 1/8, 18, 18 something, a date. She ran her fingers over the lettering of a scattering of gold flecks clung to her skin. She ran her fingers over the lettering, and a scattering of gold flecks clung to her skin. But she could read nothing further. Somebody's diary, she thought, and she flipped through its pages. Fewer than half were filled, and they stopped abruptly in May. Probably got kicked out of school, she thought, like me, and studied the tiny writing some more. Some of the paper was stained with water and looked like watercolors of brown lakes against a sky of cream. March 18th, she read on another page. A strange day. Louisa and Emily put on their play, but what's going on here? Maggie spun around and faced Aunt Lillian and Aunt Harriet in the doorway. What are you doing in this room? Aunt Lillian demanded. Who gave you permission to come in here? Put those books down. Aunt Harriet's voice rose to a high pitch and abruptly fell. Look what she's done with the book, she added in a hoarse whisper. Come over here, Aunt Lillian ordered. Come here at once. But Maggie stood where she was, the old diary still in her hand. She stared hard at her 2 aunts, waiting for them to lower their eyes and move away, but this time they stared back. Take her to her room, Aunt Lillian finally said, and in the next moment the diary was pulled from her grasp, and a hand on her shoulder steered her away from the desks, and the blackboard, and the globe, and the books, and the 5 backwoods girls with their bare feet and wondering stares. The next time Maggie tried the schoolroom door, it was locked. Why not? Chapter 16. The day before Thanksgiving was Founders' Day at New Adelphi Hills Academy, and surprisingly, it was to be celebrated at Aunt Lillian's and Aunt Harriet's house, in the parlor. Each year, Maggie learned all the children from the new academy trooped down the road to sit in the front of the portraits of the 2 founders of the original school and listen to speeches about them. And because it was almost Thanksgiving, that holiday was celebrated on the same day, although at one time there had been separate celebrations on separate days. Now the traditions were all mixed together, along with the speeches about the founders. There was a ceremony with candles and a class wish, and everybody brought a bundle of old clothes to contribute to poor people. The 2 aunts prepared for the occasion by arranging branches of colored leaves on the mantel and lining up a row of plastic bins in the hallway. The bins were for the old clothes collection. Later in the afternoon, a truck would come and carry them all away. For the unfortunate, Aunt Harriet had said. There are children not far from here who would be happy to own a good warm coat and a pair of sturdy shoes. Maggie wondered if that was true. Could there be down the road maybe, or over the hill, a family of real backwoods girls who would really marvel over their toothbrush and her ballpoint pen? Now everybody wound along the long road from the school building to the big stone house. Now everyone wound along the long road from the school building to the big stone house. Maggie had seen a picture once of children being evacuated from some European city during World War II. An endless line of boys and girls with oversized ears and black smudges for eyes, all trudging along a bleak highway with bundles of clothes clasped to their chests. She thought of them now as she took her place in line with all the children of her school, each carrying a brown paper bag fat as a pig, and marching with it to the big gray house that could have been a stone fortress. They had been told not to talk along the way, but only Maggie was silent. Hey, Diana, what did you bring? Oh, a bunch of stuff. My sister's old shoes, and this old jacket, and I haven't worn in a billion years, and my last year's denim vest. Your denim vest? The one with the parrot on the back with the sequins? You're giving that away? Yeah, well, it's too small. And anyway, I cut the parrot off first and saved it, except the sequins all fell off. What are you bringing? I don't know, some old stuff. My mother packed it for me. Gloves mostly, and my sneakers that the toes came through. Hey, Gregory, quit stepping on the back of my shoes. Well, why can't you walk faster? Hey, look at Maggie's bundle. How come she's got such a big bag? Hey, Maggie, what do you have in there? An elephant or what? Yeah, what's in there anyway? Where'd you get all that stuff to give away? She probably stole it. Hey, let's see what's in there. Don't get near her, she kicks. Maybe there's a body in there. Yeah, I bet she kicked somebody to death and stuffed the body in that paper bag. 2 bodies, I bet. It's big enough. Hey, Edwin, what did you bring? Me? Oh, my mother's sweater that she doesn't wear anymore. And this hat that my grandmother gave me last year that I hate. You should see it. It's got this dumb face like a clown's on it. And the face is wearing a hat. So it's like 2 hats. It's really dumb. I brought something that isn't clothes. It's a tablecloth, but my mother said somebody could use it. For what? To wear, you mean? No, dummy, for a tablecloth. But the teacher said has to be clothes. Well, maybe somebody could wear it, like for a shawl or something. What's the matter with it? I mean, how come you're giving it away? It's got this wine spilled on it that didn't come out. Along the road they marched, across the front walk, up the wide stone steps and into the front hall. One by one they paused at the big plastic bins and dropped their bundles in. When it was Maggie's turn, she pushed down all the paper bags before laying down her own fat bundle with its rolls of brown dresses, taken that morning from her closet, the long brown stockings from her dresser drawer, the long pink underpants, the undershirts, the slips, and in the very center, the rubber-faced doll with its pink dress and lace-trimmed underwear. She felt strange entering her own parlor as though she were a visitor, And when she sat on the floor, she looked around at the tables and chairs pushed against the wall and at the china ballerina in the cabinet, as though for the first time. Some things were new to her. The branches of autumn leaves looking strangely bright against the gloom of the parlor wall, and a heavy 8-stick candle stand that had been placed in front of the fireplace. Strangest of all, though, was the sight of all these children arranged in rows, little ones close to the fireplace, older ones near the windows, on the flowers and vines of the rug of the gray, quiet parlor. Suddenly, Aunt Lillian was speaking. She was wearing a dress Maggie had never seen before, and a circle of pink had been rubbed over the freckles on each cheek. Aunt Harriet, standing at the parlor entrance and greeting everyone, had also rouged her face, except her spots were more purple than pink and contained little dark rivers where the wrinkles were. On this day, Aunt Lillian was saying, we all remember the two personages, and here she waved her hand to the pale faces on the wall, who, out of a spirit of charity and love of learning, established Adelphi Hills Academy over 100 years ago for the purpose of improving the character and stimulating the intellect of a group of carefully chosen girls. Maggie stopped listening. One of the teachers stood up next and asked, "Who has something to share with us about our founders?" No one answered. "What do we like to remember about the founders of Adelphi Hills Academy?" the teacher persisted while Aunt Lillian looked over the rows of faces. Maggie dropped her eyes to the rug and scratched an M into its nap. Aunt Lillian didn't seem to notice her at all, and Aunt Harriet had said, "Good morning, welcome to Adelphi Hills," to her just as she had to everyone else who entered the parlor. The children were still wearing their coats, and the room smelled of the school hall. "Who can tell us something about the founders?" A hand finally went up. "They were over 100 years old." Another hand. "They had a spirit of charity. They had a love of learning. They had a love of character. They chose girls. They had a dog," someone said, studying the portrait of the man. "They had a spirit of charity." "Spirit of charity has been said," a teacher corrected. "Anything else?" "They were spooky," somebody said, but in an undertone. Maggie looked up. It was Alyssa from her class, and she was stretching her mouth into an expression of mock horror as she gazed at the portraits. "Look at them," she whispered to someone next to her, to Barbara. "Look at their spooky eyes." "Yeah," Barbara whispered back. "Two spooks." "What did the founders do for the academy?" the teacher asked. "They spooked it," Alyssa whispered, and she giggled with Barbara. "They found it," someone said. "Founded. They founded it. Nobody knew it was here until they founded it." And it was time for the Thanksgiving wishes. The day before, each class had made up a wish and chosen someone to recite it over a lighted candle in Maggie's parlor. Maggie herself had been chosen to deliver her class's wish, but that had been her teacher's idea. "It's Maggie's house after all," Miss Hunter had said. The wish was full of words like peace and brotherhood and no more pollution, when what everyone really wished for was new clothes and maybe a stereo. Maggie had a wish of her own, but she kept it to herself. "What do you wish for, Maggie?" Miss Hunter had asked. "What would you like to add to the class wish?" And she answered, "Freedom for poor people." But she was thinking instead of how Uncle Morris had heard the voices in the birch trees and would not tell her what he knew about them, would not even acknowledge that he had heard them at all. "Freedom for poor people, Maggie? Freedom to do what?" "To be poor," she had answered, and the class laughed, but she barely noticed. She was wondering if Uncle Morris could somehow be made to tell. Aunt Lillian walked over to the large 8-stick candle stand, one candle for each grade, in front of the fireplace. She held a long flaming taper and handed it to children as they came up, one by one, to recite their class wishes. "The first grade wishes for happy children all over the world," a boy in a bow tie said, and Aunt Lillian wrapped her hand around his fist while he lit the first candle with the taper. "The second grade wishes that the whole world will be happy and will have enough food to wear and clothes to eat," a girl said, but nobody noticed until Aunt Lillian corrected her. "Food to eat and clothes to wear." And then everybody laughed. Maggie rehearsed her class wish silently while the other candles were being lit. The sixth grade desires, Alyssa had suggested desires, and everybody else voted for it. An end to tyranny and pollution in all the nations of the world. Nations of the world was Howard's. It got more votes than throughout the universe, which was Randy's. We desire freedom everywhere and a new scientific achievements to help mankind and womankind. Barbara had added womankind. In their search for better lives. It was a stupid wish. The 5 glowing flames on the candle stand had left an imprint on Maggie's vision. 5 blue blurs that danced in front of her eyes, and they traveled along with her as she picked her way among the hunched bodies on the floor. She had never spoken in front of a lot of people before, and she was surprised to see the taper tremble and its flame dart nervously when Aunt Lillian placed it in her hand. The wick on the 6th candle sprang to life when she touched it, and she opened her mouth to speak. "Where did I put my handkerchief?" The voice came from somewhere in the fireplace, and Maggie turned her head to locate it. "It's in the wash basket. Are you sniffly today?" "No, I need it to rub out a spot on the sugar bowl." "Soon everything will be ready. The teaspoons could do with a polish. They're looking dull." "What is the 6th grade wish, Maggie?" Miss Hunter was asking. "Speak up." Maggie bent her ear to the fireplace, but no voice came. "She forgot," someone said from the floor. "She would," someone else said. "Maggie, we're all waiting to hear your wish," Aunt Lillian this time. "I wish," Maggie said, still looking intently into the fireplace and holding the flame taper in front of her. "I wish..." "Yes, we want the teaspoons to gleam." "Who can help Maggie with the 6th grade wish?" Miss Hunter asked. "Alyssa, will you recite our class wish for Maggie?" "I wish," Maggie said as Alyssa advanced across the rug. "I wish," and she faced the candle stand. "I wish," and her voice was steady and clear, "I wish I could find out who's saying all those crazy things." But Alyssa was taking the taper from her hand now and beginning, "The 6th grade desires..."